What's going on, everybody? It is Wednesday, but Matt is not here tonight. It is just me. So everybody check in. It is episode 143. Is that right? 143, I believe. Matt is out this week. He had a work obligation. So we decided to bring on some guests tonight instead. And there should be audio. Just making sure. I missed Matt. Okay, good. There is audio. Damn it, Brett. That's how we start this one. So tonight we're going to bring on two of the rules committee members from SORRCA. Now I know not everybody is into scale competition, but since Matt isn't here, I figured we would nerd out with it and get into some of the details of the new rules. Either way, if you have no idea about SORRCA, it's at least good background knowledge. Maybe it will make sense why there's some, discussion that happens on the internet about these things. So anyway, check in where you're watching from and what you're drinking tonight. It's going to be a busy one tonight, I think. So I have some liquid death. Liquid death. Mango chainsaw again. Beef. So we have two of the committee members that are going to come on tonight. We're bringing on Ben Morin, Toyzuki, if you're not aware, and Dan. I'm not going to butcher his name here. I'm going to make him introduce himself. I've never met Dan, so looking forward to talking with him and going over these new rules. Should be a good time. I'm looking forward to it. Gunner, thank you, sir. Hello, all. Tonight's code, #Matt's the better one. You know what? I reject your reality. Before we bring on Ben and Dan, though, we'll go over. We'll do the quick mail call, like we would normally do. Except I'll go first tonight since Matt's not here. But for those of you who maybe saw in the news, Reefs released some new Mini 100 servos. Raw. This is the raw. Oh, other way. The raw 100 Mini, and then this is. Well, I guess it's still raw. I thought the raw ones were just the silver. I guess they're both just called raw. Was I the only one who didn't know that until just right now? Learn something every day. And then I also got back the 299 Don't Crash at 70 miles an hour. Fixed that one. This is what I had in the Go Fast Phoenix when it took its tumble. So got that replaced, and I've got a truck that not a truck that this is going to go back into, which brings up some of my other mail call stuff. I got some Traxxas parts here. These are slash parts. So red, more red. Those are here. And then I actually picked up, pin that. Thank you, Dana. And pin message. There's your discount to satisfiedjerky.com. #Matt's the better one. You can go save yourself 10% on Satisfied Jerky. The also picked up didn't pick up. I found at work some old original Vanquish slash parts. If you didn't know that they existed, they do in fact exist. So found some of those and grabbed those as well. A few other things. This is the Hobbywing Fusion SE. This is that new stripped down. This thing is like $80 or less, and it's just a stripped down fusion system. Not quite as programmable, but a lot of the same functions as the normal fusion, just in a little cheaper package. So I got another one of those. I might throw that in that element. If you guys watched Friday night's build, then that will be. I think that might be where that is going to end up. Something there. Pay up, sucker. RC, thank you for the $5. Much appreciated. Building some incision shocks tonight with some better anodized parts. Nice. The the hard anodized bodies and the tinitride shafts are definitely some of my favorite. I also, for those of you who weren't on the stream on Friday, my Hot RC 4-channel Top Gun radios came in. I got 2 of these, and I actually competed with these on on Sunday, or with one of them. You only need one at a time. But I actually put this in my comp rig and drove with it. You know, it's a very high quality radio. They are $17 each, but your throttle and then your steering is on this thing here. How did you do in that comp? It actually, I did pretty well with it. Got a little bit of video as well. However, we got absolutely dumped on with rain. So I only ran one course before we ended up having to call it. So I still do hope to get that footage done. I walked out of the house, however, without my GoPro, my main GoPro. I only had my secondary one. So I had one of my coworkers film for me, and he filmed with his iPhone, but vertically. And I was halfway through the course and I looked at him and I go, "Are you really filming vertically?" And he goes, "Oh, yeah." So I got to figure out how to integrate that footage with vertical, and we'll see. We'll figure it out. I might be able to get that. We'll see. I don't know when I'm going to get that edited, but it'll happen here before too long. And I also got a package in the mail today that I have not opened. This is from, it's sent to the Scale News Update from Carryall RC. We'll use our brazen scale knife, brought to you by Brazen Scale. So I don't 100% know what's in here, but, and also if you saw the address, yes, it's my work address though, so it's fine. This is from, like I said, Carryall RC. And what do we have? We have all kinds of things. So we have some stickers, some Carryall patch, and two issues of RC Car Action. This is the Car Action Gear Guide. Look at that thing. Super-sized issue, which it absolutely is. A lot of stuff there. So I'll have to look through that when we get a chance. Looks cool. But this is what I imagine would that box carried on. Is this another first aid kit? Yes, it is. Which is good. I actually stabbed myself working on a car last night. And which thumb was it? I think it was this one, because it hurts. Still, those magazines still exist? I know, right? What's a magazine? This is the it's like the man bag one. It goes across the front, I believe. But it's actually a really nice size. It's kind of a, now I'm not saying that I've abandoned the fanny pack, but sometimes you can't fit everything you need in there. But sometimes you don't want to carry your full backpack. So I actually do really like this size. I could see this being a really, really handy size for some minimal tools, and my audio gear, things like that. This is probably one of my favorite sizes. I carried my full-size carry-all this weekend, and it's nice, but I always just set it down and then walk away. Like I never, especially if I'm like at an event, I'm not like doing a trail ride. So I kind of like that. That's a good look. That's a mighty fine bag you have there. So thanks, Carryall RC. Appreciate that. And I'll look through some magazines later. I'll put them next to my, I'll put them in the magazine room. In case I forget my phone one time. But that was the gist of the things that I ended up getting for this weekend. So The back. Yeah. You know, that's anyway. I think we've got everybody here. I don't want to delay this too long because I am looking forward to the SORRCA stuff. I know that again, not everybody is going to be super heavy crazy into the competition side, but hopefully it's still an interesting conversation. They did send me the rules. I'm going to make sure I get that pulled up here quickly so that we can go through that. Next to the throne. Remember, I used to have a stack. Like when I was growing up, I had Easy Rider magazines. I had all those. My Motor Trend. I used, the stack of, of magazines you used to have in the bath. It used to be like a big, serious selection in there. Class zero is the most important discussion. Let me tell you, I read a significant portion of those rules, like almost every single, like I think I got about 40 pages done, all but the very last part of it. And audio seems a bit low. I'm gonna raise my audio up while I talk so I can see my levels about there. So hopefully that fixes it a little. That looks a little peaky. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how hot and bothered I get today. No, I love a good rules. Oh, that had to be hot. I saw that peak way up there. All right, we're backing it down a little bit. I do love a good rules discussion. It's one I truly like to nerd out about those things. So, and I like how the rules looked, and I read through a lot of them. Oh, Gunnar, thank you again. Oh, first, Dom Berlin. Much appreciated. Hey, Josh, is there a way to get the high overdrive lower 46% in the Phoenix? Lower than for technically yes, if you put overdrive gears in the rear axle you would get lower, but then when you're in the low overdrive at 6% you would have underdrive, the opposite. So no, not really. No, I guess is not if you want functional in the rest of the ways. And then Gunner, thank you. Also, discounted all 3 flavors of turkey to 20%. Seriously, get the turkey jerky though. That stuff is one of my favorites. What's the one? I don't know. Whatever Gunner says, the one that's like Jacob's turkey jerky. It's so good. Yeah, it's. Oh, let's see. And GC Coop, thanks, sir. What weight shock oil do you recommend for the Phoenix Portal? I'm running 50 in mine right now. If you're not running like a ton of wheel speed, 50. If you're running a lot of wheel speed, you can go to 30 or 40. So I love the teriyaki. Is fantastic too. Try the Satisfied Jerky. You won't be disappointed. And I'm just going to pull up rules quickly here so I can discuss that while we talk. But we're going to bring those guys on here now. Squints Palindorus. Good seeing you back, sir. Let's bring those guys in. I'm going to go through the normal process of getting all the video sorted. All right. Bring both of those in, and then I've got to... Yeah, you probably can't see anything here yet. Hold a second. And I know you guys can't see anything. Don't worry. I will fix it. Hopefully. This is fun.
My headsets. Can you hear me now?
Oh, I need to put mine on so we don't get a bunch of echo. I forgot. I forgot how this show works when I'm the only one here. All right. So hold please while I fix all of my issues. A well-oiled machine. Yeah. So normally this thing goes a lot smoother when Matt and I are here because I'm only fixing one guest thing at a time. Why is this not working at all? Fun. Guest. They're getting a lot of black video on the other end, which is perfect. Let's see if that one works. At least they have you're on there now. Ben has not joined yet. Dan, why don't you go ahead and say something so we can see if their audio works.
Hey, can everybody hear me?
Yep, looks like they can. While I continue to try and fix the rest of this junk, why don't you give a little bit of an introduction on yourself? I've never met you. I'm Josh, by the way. Nice to meet you.
Hey, nice to meet you. That's a normal reaction to my last name, by the way. It's Plusinski, but it's been said a million different ways. Introduction on me: I relatively new to RC. Been doing it for about 2-3 years, and I'm addicted thoroughly. And was doing the comp scene, and then I was like, these rules don't make a lot of sense to me. So how do I fix them? And that's kind of how I ended up here. And somebody asked what kind of fish were in the tank, but that's just a freshwater community fish. It's actually powering down. They're going to be going to bed here shortly. It's 9:17 on the East Coast. So,
well, good to I'm glad to meet you. Now, are you partially responsible for the classing up of the rules formatting and things like that?
I can take no credit for the rectangles, the rectals, or whatever we want to call them. The many pages. Yeah, I think I have a heavy hand in that blame. So,
and then below Dan there is Ben. The quality of his image is a reflection directly on his personality. So,
well, thanks.
I've known Ben, however, for way too many years.
Yeah, quite a while.
And I still can't get my own video to work now. That's the beauty of this. Everything's working except my video, which is the best thing I've ever experienced. So I think we might just go we'll see if this works. It wants to do anything but work well for me, so I'm super happy about this. It's okay. Anyway, while I just keep fiddling with that, I'm going to let you guys do a little bit of talking while I figure this out. But I guess, how should we start this? The rules have got a big overhaul in general, but it's not as drastic as everyone thinks. It didn't appear. I read through pretty much the entire thing today. I guess what's the biggest point you guys would like to first put out there before you scare everybody away?
you want to go, Ben, or you want me to?
Sure. Yeah, the reason we needed the revamp, I mean, it's been a long time coming. The rules were good, and the rules have been exploited for years, and there's been little patches put in here and there to where they don't make sense anymore. They don't align to what we want it to be or what it should be. And so we're trying to get back to the way it used to be with divided classes and more scale appearance. Getting rid of some gray areas. We've had a lot of gray areas exploited, and been guilty of doing it myself. It's kind of part of the fun. But trying to get it to a more level competition where everybody's got an equal advantage.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And, I've been to Scale Nationals a number of times. So, seeing how some of the rules had been exploited was like, it's sometimes a little bit like disheartening to see at times. So,
yeah,
I guess I don't want you guys to have to call anybody out or point any specific fingers, but what are like some of like the main loopholes you guys were like looking at? Like, for example, one of the ones that for me that I would see would be like body heights. That was always something to me that was just like looking at some of them. I was just like, man, how is this? How are we letting this slide?
We can easily attack people by name internally. So I'm going to go after my buddy Devlin, and rules like the front bumper width matching the windshield. If you're building your own body or you're choosing a body, like you throw a T-bucket on, your windshield's very narrow, and so you gain approach angle over anybody else in the competition by your body choice and the size of the windshield. If you're hand building your own body, you really have flexibility to do whatever you want and use the rules to your advantage. So the idea of the rectangle is that be creative, build whatever you want. If you want it to be a Wienermobile or a tea bucket or whatever is in your ideas in your head, you can do it, but you're gonna not gain an advantage by it. You need to build to the rectangle so everybody has the same parameters to work off of.
Yeah, that makes sense. Last year I looked at, I did my own body, and yeah, it was just like, well, the bumper has to be as wide. It's like, well, I can just make the windshield frame narrower, and it's still reasonable, but and now it said like what, a half inch is the allowable width difference between the rectangle and the windshield.
Correct.
So, and now last year it said windshield, and it didn't specify windshield frame. So now it's the actual Lexan portion of the windshield. Is that what we're?
Well, it's not. So if you're talking about the bumper rule, the bumper is no longer related to the windshield.
Oh,
it's
true.
based off the rectangle. So if you do, everything goes back to the rectangle. So if you decide to build something with a single seat buggy, it's not going to gain you an advantage. You still have the creativity to build what you want, but you're not going to gain an approach advantage by having a smaller windshield.
Right. And before we go too far, can I share that link to the rules that you had shared to me? Is that the live link?
That's the live link, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to put that in the chat for everyone. I'm still a little bit looking at at my video issue, trying to fix that, but at least it's not the most important part of this.
I think
Dan, correct me if I'm wrong.
Go ahead, man.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but we did replace the original link with something with typo errors, but it's nothing that affects the rules.
Not yet.
So
it'll probably be because everybody was downloading it, and I didn't want to break it while everybody was grabbing it.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah, because I sent a copy to Josh before they went public, so I didn't know if they were edited.
Those are the same that exist right now. That's actually a big change on the rules. If you do not get it from the link that is live on our Facebook SORRCA page, it's not the right version. We delete the old version off of there and stop sharing it, and there's an archive folder. So each old version of the rules goes into archive, and the only thing that's shared is the live version since they're living now.
Gotcha. So the SORRCA group, I'm gonna just paste to that because I was getting a crazy text to now. So I guess that's the other thing. Previously there was a website with the rules hosted, right?
Yep.
And
correct.
Is that? I remember that was gone for a little while. Is it?
Honestly, I don't even know who owns it, but it didn't get paid for, and it turned into a link to something else. And
it sounds like something I would have done.
Yeah, so it's I remember that. Yeah, it's no longer available, and the site name is no longer available to us. So
okay,
it's kind of a dead horse. Right now, we're working off Facebook. I know Dan's kind of our IT guy, and he plans on setting something up in the future, but as of right now, there's nothing but Facebook.
Okay.
The other thing too with that is the web pages are kind of like 1990s. So we're trying to once we get more time, we're going to actually put these for the computer nerds on the chat. We're going to put them onto probably GitHub, and we're going to use a UML markup language. So basically, it looks like if you're downloading code, here's the latest version, here's the changes, here's the patch notes, here's the README. You just always go to there. It's always there. It's much simpler. But right now we're using Google Drive and just keeping it easy on us.
Sure. I guess kind of looking at this, going through some of the things, I did go through, I think I got through all of the vehicle specification stuff. I didn't get into the very last part of it with scoring. Which I know there were some changes there too that we can get to. But just getting into some of the differences. If people here don't know, SORRCA generally broken into 3 classes, class 1, 2, and 3, and kind of steps the vehicle up from modified regular vehicle to a little bit more advanced style, trail truck or off-road buggy, then to full, crawler. I guess some of the biggest changes, it seems like, is now the very big distinction. Like a class 2 truck, you can't just go run it in class 3. It has to have at least bigger tires. You can't just run the same 475 truck in both.
Yeah,
Correct.
I think that was important to make sure the classes had identities. Out here in the where I comp, the class 3 is actually the smallest. There's not usually a ton of trucks there. C1 and C2 are out the door, but C3 is kind of small. So a lot of people run C2s and C3s, so that's kind of a drawback of giving it an identity. However, a lot of the guys that never built C3s, I've been hearing, they're kind of excited about how wild C3 is now. You can run all the things. You want to have dig and four-wheel steer and police sirens and have a tiny one-seater, go nuts. And we're hoping that kind of gives C3 kind of an identity and a resurgence instead of just, can I run C2 in it?
Yeah. That there is some of that. I think that, not, and I guess really it's just changing tires. If you really want to just run it in a different one, it's mainly just a tire change now. So not a huge deal, but
Yeah.
at least it's some sort of difference.
Yeah, and also there's manufacturers out there. I don't want to name any names that made really big tires,
Really
and rated them at 4.75.
They are 4.75.
Yeah, so cut and shuts are legal in class 3, and if you're determined to run a class 2 tire in class 3, cut them and shut them, and they will measure more than 4.75, and you'll still be running.
I don't know what altitude you're at. I've heard that altitude affects them. Also latitude, longitude, even. So depending on where you're at. But here in my office, at my house, they are 4.75.
Okay.
They're like 6 out here on the East Coast. So.
Well,
Everything's bigger in the South, though. It's
Yeah, I wasn't talking about any brand specific or anything, but I know they're out there.
I had a buddy running these unknown tires, and he was like, I can't run these anymore. They're rubbing on my whole body. They're so big. So.
I fixed it. Yes.
Yeah, so there's not supposed to be any gray areas in the rules, but there's always going to be a gray area, and that tire size is also one of them. A lot of them are actually bigger than the manufacturer specs, and if you put a little super glue on them and they look cut and shut, they're going to be the same tire running in the same class. But we had to do something to make the squeaky wheels happy that did not like class 2 trucks and class 3.
Sure. I mean, and I get some of that now that I have fixed my IT stuff and everybody can see me, which I know is why they're here. I can get back to some serious focus, but I guess one of the other, I went through, and being a rules person and a little stickler at things, I was looking, I was like, oh, I found some little changes that I liked and some things that I noticed. Even just like the very fine changes of talking about the pinch for class 2 and how it has to be a straight line now. So I know I had seen before people with a Toyota would cut the entire fender off to go straight. So now that straight line thing, it has to be, they can't do that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I also saw some of bleed over type stuff from WRCCA now it's called, with the maximum beadlock ring size.
Yeah, so we started and we made a lot of references to the wheel for heights of sliders and things like that.
That makes total sense.
Right. And so we got to the point of we'll just make bigger beadlock rings. And so we measured all the common tutus that everybody had available to see what the biggest was. And we went a hair bigger than that. And then we found it was the same as the moon buggy crawlers. So we just went with that number because I'm sure they've already done the work.
Yeah, 2.55 is what you guys have in there now. And what they're talking about for the beadlock. So in the rules now, they have there's a lot of measurements, maximums, minimums, things like that. They're trying to make it so that there's been at times people who have built trucks that are very low, so almost nothing above just the top of your fender line. And they've got this full compression measurement now, meaning that you compress the suspension, and so it gives you a consistent measuring method, I would imagine, was the idea behind that. But, and it's when you can push it all the way down, certain things have to be at certain heights. And yeah, if you just run a bigger beadlock ring, all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, look, I meet.
And a lot of A lot of the push for that was also visual measurements. So we're not spending as much time at the tech table. You can visually see that it aligns with the inside of the tire or the bead lock ring, or we tried to keep them as visual as possible so we're not sitting there measuring as long.
Yeah,
We-
and
we
I saw
also- Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I saw like some of them are, for example, like, and to give people an idea of what we're talking about, if you haven't read a bunch of rules, you can't have it. It says the belly height of a class 2 or whatever can't be higher than the top of the beadlock ring at full compression. So, and some people might be like, well, you think that they're trying to alienate trucks that are crazy hijacked in the air, which kind of is that, but it's probably for the ones that are trying to exploit this crazy breakover with a tiny body, then making this very unrealistic look. But also,
Correct.
Tony and his monster trucks are now immediately out as well. So,
The big thing there is like we had to draw a line between competition and trail, right?
right.
So you get your lifted diesel bros and stuff, and that's fine, but those guys aren't going to be really competitive anyway.
Right.
So it was more important to isolate the comp folks who were abusing the rules. And then the other thing with that full compression check is a tech table was a mystery to a lot of folks. So having the ability to know how it will be teched when you go to a comp and actually have rules to point at and be like, no, it's legal, I think is important, especially for people traveling cross country.
Right. Yeah. There is some language right there at the beginning of the rules now that say, if it's not in these rules, then it's not the rule anymore. Don't use old thought process or things like that. What's the old saying? Forget what you thought you knew about.
Yeah.
Done.
No more screenshotting what somebody said on Facebook. We're not honoring that anymore. And that brings us to the living rules, and why they're living rules is because rather than making an official post that everybody can copy and it's not in the rules, we're actually just going to change the rules if there's an issue that needs to be addressed.
And I think that might, like, initially the thought of that might scare some people, but I will say that, I came from the comp side before, the robot side of crawlers, as Matt would call them. And, coming from that before, like, those rules were they were like very set, and they were I was even on that rules committee, and we were all very against the idea of changing rules, and things started getting out of hand and going way further outside of the initial ideas and thoughts of what that side was like. And I always saw SORRCA coming in, and as much as I've made fun of scale competition in the past, which I still will, but SORRCA has been much better about the idea of, no, we need to change it to keep it within the spirit. And it's a good thing. As much as people hate the change and bitch about their, truck being illegal, it is good to keep it in the spirit.
We're on the same page. We don't want to make rule changes, but we're probably going to have to. But we're reasonable people. We're not gonna change it and say it goes into effect in a week.
Sure.
We have to leave it open because we don't know what the rule is that we're going to have to change and how important it is. But if it's something petty, it's going to wait till next year. It's not a big rush to shove them out and make everybody change their trucks. But if we see something being exploited and basically cheating, then we're going to have to do something about it. And we'll give ample time for everybody to get up to date with it. But we will change it when it needs to be changed, not wait a year.
It makes it easier for us too to maintain it because there's no more giant yearly drops. It's minor tweaks. And then if there's something major, yeah, we'll do 6 months, 12 months, maybe, like depending how big it is, right? We'll give you a warning, but the work's done. We just say, hey, here's the rules. This is going live on this day. Get used to it.
Yeah. And I would rather see that to keep reel the trucks back in some ways, in some areas, things like that. Did have a couple of questions. Blind Guy RC first, thank you. Been building a comp truck. My plan has been class 2. My Power Wagon cab has no fenders, and the bed is a flatbed. Is that an issue? So there is no more of the fender rule, right?
Right.
It just has to meet the minimum dimensions now.
And class 2 really hasn't changed. The fenders weren't required before, but the Power Wagon is so narrow, if you cut them completely off, you get inside that 2/3 spec. But I believe we went to half.
Yeah, it's half.
Right?
Yeah, half now.
Right. So you've got a lot more leniency than you did before, even though it looks more strict because it's lined out. We loosened up on a lot of the dimensions, so it is looser now, and you don't need fenders.
That's excellent, and obviously something that was super popular. Ravensdale RC also, thank you. May I ask what cut and shut means? That's a great question for people who maybe ran across the term but haven't seen it. Cut and shut is usually referred to as taking a tire and either cutting a section out and then making it smaller, like taking a 2.2 and turning it into a 1.9, which can, in the end, make a larger tire. Or you can take a 1.9 tire, cut it, and then add another section of the tire back in, sometimes making a larger tire. That's common with like BFG crawlers, where you can take and add another section to make it fit a 2.2 wheel, and you end up with a 5.25 inch tall BFG crawler. So there's also other situations where people will take a sidewall out of one tire and put the tread from another on it. It's a lot of work. Your fingers get super stuck together. They usually don't look that great. But, I did see in the tire section, there is some specific talking about all pin style tires. Would that include like the trenchers now?
I'm not familiar with the trencher.
You're not familiar with the trencher?
No, I was a diehard pit bull guy forever, and now I'm kind of leaning into the pro line and the high racks.
Those are pro lines, Ben. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got so much crap. I don't buy any more stuff.
Did you wear the rodeo shirt too while you were with Pitbull?
No. I was not a part of Pitbull. I really like.
You just really like the tires. You just didn't.
Yeah.
You just didn't. The rodeo shirt wasn't part of your wardrobe.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. I just heckled them because I comp a lot with one of their drivers.
Gotcha. So, but trenchers aren't pins? I disagree.
The intent was not to ban trenchers, but more just like true analogs of pin tires. So if that becomes like questionable, that's the beauty of the living rules, right? We'll say something like trenchers are allowed.
Okay, that's what I would be interested in. So if it was not the initial, it just that a trencher is a pin tire to me. But that is great, and good. Does C1 have wheel coverage still? No, it does not. Right?
No.
It's inside of the top of the tire bulge, has to meet the width of the center rectangle.
Yeah. So
Yes.
it actually didn't change a lot, because if you take the most common body like the Hilux,
Yes.
the cab was already that width. And people were extending the flares to cover it and heating and bending their bodies. Now you're not required to do anything stupid to meet the rule, but it's still the same clearance between the tires. It's still the width of the body, but it looks like it's opened up quite a bit. But really, it's the same as it was. We just worded it without covering tires. And a lot of that goes back to our resident Devlin with his T-bucket and a really narrow body for clearance and just covering the fenders.
You had like
covering
foam on the fenders, right?
Yeah. It's
like,
to keep people from running really skinny bodies and putting super big flares on it, so they have an advantage with the narrow body.
Right. What was it like the Tamiya holiday buggy or whatever?
Yeah.
The people were running.
My buddy Andrew broke the entire sport with the holiday buggy. He took it to Nats and got first in C1, and then I literally was watching within like 3 days. They were sold out everywhere, and now everybody's got a buggy, and we're like, we got to find some way to make this fair, because the buggy's running a C2 bumper in C1 and weighs nothing, and that's a problem. So
all the rules have a meaning or a reason behind them.
Oh, I know. I can read the rules and be like, I know this one. I know where this one came from. Like,
right.
I think one thing too, going back to earlier when you said like, what's a big thing with the rules? I think of people who followed the rules, like the spirit or the intent of the rules, were always at a disadvantage. And like the bumper and the fender rules, right? If you didn't know, you could mustache them because the way the old rules were written, or you had tire coverage properly, like as written, but everybody else there took a coffee cup and heated it all up and have no issue. All you were doing was punishing the people that were actually trying to follow the rules properly. So I think like these new rules also make it where it'll be a lot fairer for everybody, because doesn't matter. That's the picture. Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah. And I mean, I think the only thing that will, playing the opposite side. I love wording and reading all the very specifics and things like that. I think the only thing that these rules do spell out things very well, but as I have come to learn throughout, people do not like to read. And reading this, a lot of people are going to feel like they're at the DMV. So
imagine what we had to do to write it.
There is some typos. There's some typos that not a big deal. I think there's it doesn't say mounted or something like that. It says, I don't know what it is, mortared or something. I don't know.
We have some typos to fix when basically to get this done and out the door.
Yeah.
We spent 5 hours over 2 meetings hacking and slashing the alpha feedback, live editing over a chat like this, and then we're like, let's just put it out. People will tell us the typos. The intent is there, and we can fix it now. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I do have a one concern right off. Part of going through, talking about part of SORRCA is commonly about hiding electronics and things like that. It says you have to hide it from all. What about things like the VFD transmission, where the motor, or even the Toyzuki, where the motor is technically kind of visible?
Do they have to be?
What do you mean?
Like what does it take to hide it?
I mean,
if you look into
it, you just have to hide
your
it.
motor. Your motor will not be lower than your lower link. That's the limitation on dropping your motor. So if you can have an inner fender that drops to the bottom of the chassis is the lower link. You can't get any get any lower than that. So they're not going to be hard to hide.
Some of the new body or some of the new builds that people are running, we're not running outrunners. We're running like 540 Magnum stubbies, and we use them as sliders. They're at parallel or slightly under the lower links. So.
Yeah, I mean, in VFD stock, it hangs below the chassis, there's a triangle down there.
So you might have found something we missed, because honestly, I don't include a motor in my definition of electronics. That's a motor. So my definition of electronics is a receiver, the ESC, the BEC, right? So these are covered, you just gave us another meeting, and we thank you for it.
Yeah. But in reality, I mean, my BS410, the Origin, I've got my motor mount in it, and I've got it at the lowest setting, and it is far below the axle. Hey, and it's not a benefit because I drag it everywhere. It's too low, but it didn't take much to wrap a piece of Lexan around it, and I even painted on there, "This is not a motor." So it's hidden. It's not hard to.
I don't know how you guys talk with him regularly.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna kind of move him down. I'm just gonna be like the neighbor. Just peeking over the bottom of the corner of the vision.
That was Wilson, right?
Yeah. So let's see. Getting into, I've got the rules up in front of me. I posted the link a little bit earlier, so maybe I'll try and just keep posting it here every once in a while again. Any weight minimums, Carson Jans? Thank you, sir. There's no weight minimums. No concerns.
That would require a scale at every tech table in the country, and that's no. We discussed it, but no, it's not practical.
I guess I'm surprised that was much of a discussion. I get it, but at the same time, I get why it is not a rule, but I'm surprised it was something that was considered.
It came up for more scale accessories, because roof racks. We hate roof racks.
I saw that.
We hate roof racks. Yeah. They're so hard to write rules around. But if we could just say your roof rack has to weigh X amount, that would make it way easier. However, nobody's going to take your roof rack off and weigh it at every table. So it makes it so hard to write a rule that how do you give these people a point, yet actually have to have an impediment for the point?
Right. So I saw now that the roof rack has to be an 1/8 inch off the body and at least an 1/8 inch thick.
Yeah.
So.
And that was part of the rectangle for hard body points, is how much hard body is actually required to get a hard body. I mean, there's guys with nothing left collecting hard body points. They don't have to have doors. They don't have to have a roof. They don't have to have a hood. I mean, you can't rule out or require so many parts of a body. So we split it into sections. You'll have all the required pieces in that section to get the points, because we can't dictate what consists of a hard body because
Right.
there's too many different varieties of builds.
I did see that the word forged was specifically used in the rules for custom hard body points now.
Yeah, there's this one guy.
Chris Barr, thank you, by the way. Shout out to Dan. See you at KCH. Sounds like an airport.
I love Key City Hobbies, man. I live there.
Oh, Key City. There, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it's my local stomping grounds. I was gonna say too with the rules, the previous rules were way worse than anybody knew, because they never talked to Ben or Devlin. When I joined the committee, I was like, guys, we got to fix this stuff, and they're like, that's not a problem. And I listened to these guys for the last year and a half, and I'm just like, thank God they don't talk outside of this circle, because the amount of stuff that we would see going on rock courses would just enrage everybody. There would be violent murders at rock calling comps.
Oh,
So-
I've
Yeah.
spent more time than I, care to remember with both of them. And
Oh,
yeah,
then you know my
Yeah. Yeah. So sometimes when they don't listen to the concerns, you have to show them, and it's
Yeah.
really embarrassing but fun.
freaking continuous rollovers. Now, like, what are we doing?
We're showing that the rule needs to be fixed.
Yeah, I
and we
know.
fixed it.
I know.
I literally said nobody in their right mind would ever do that. And Ben's like, it's right here. And Devlin's like, let me get mine. I'm like, what? So
Yeah, we discussed it for 2 years and nothing happened, so we did it, and
Yeah.
something happened.
So yeah, that's, I get it. And the thing is, in the end, like, yes, I saw one of the comments, it rules for toy trucks. You're right. But we will compete with there's paper plane competitions, and they have a lot of rules too. Like, no matter what it is, it's fun to be competitive if that is your desire. If you don't want to be competitive, then who cares, right? Then, who cares? Who cares? But I think many of us love the idea of competition, and it's another thing to go do with our friends, and it's a square measuring contest in the woods. But we enjoy that part of it. So it's like, yes, it is then nice to be on a somewhat level playing field with a description of it. Now, one of the things in here was talking about defining the rectangle a little bit. And yeah, if you don't want to go read the rules, I get it. You just see the word rectangle getting thrown around a lot on the internet. It's not that bad. It basically is just subdividing the vehicle in a front section, in a middle section, and a rear section. And the term rectangle is obviously a decision you guys came upon.
if it starts
Yeah.
all rectangles before like the shovel and the sliver came into life. But
Yeah, they're trapezoids.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
Geometrical shapes,
Whatever.
something. But
It's
I lost that argument.
yeah.
We're rectangles.
it's fine. I didn't, but yeah, it's not that big. It's just talking about like, hey, the front of your truck has to meet these rules. It has to be at least this wide, and it has to be at least this, has to be above this point. It's pretty minimal. And then depending on the class 1, class 2, and class 3, the definition of like where the center rectangle starts and ends differs a little bit, like in relation to the tire or wheel. I can't remember which one.
Yeah. Tire.
Okay. So it's, again, if you're going to compete, the rules are pretty well laid out. I don't think you'll have a super hard time, but if you need some clarification, there's places to ask. Windshields. I saw that pop up here a couple of times. Those are required for class 1,
Correct.
and that's it?
In the frame.
Correct.
You can no longer put them in the bed of your truck and be like, I got one. What's the problem?
Oh,
Yeah.
I did see there is that rule up top saying that things have to be mounted in a place that's, how did you guys word that? It was a pretty good wording. I liked that. It has to be mounted in a way that is.
It's hard for us to answer wording because we've worded it 10 different ways in the last year, and which one stuck.
Appropriately mounted and positioned for its application.
Positioned for its application. Yes, that was what it was. I liked that wording. That was well put. For some of these things, I remember I traveled up towards you, Ben, for Scale Nationals in 2014?
12.
2012, that's right. And we had Super Dave up there, for those of you who remember SDS Customs, the Super 300s in like the comp world. And his name was not Dave, it was John. And John had built his Class 2 truck, and he got the 3D engine points by putting a scale model of the engine in the bed.
Oh, it was a dirt bike with a scale engine on the dirt bike in the bed. It was a 3D engine.
Yeah, there it is. There's my 3D engine. They're like,
Yeah.
okay. So there's been some pretty good ones. Does a scale engine require an oil pan to air cleaner to get scale points? It says has to appear to be a complete engine, is in the rules now, I believe.
Yes.
Now, what does that mean to
use
you?
it as a servo cover, right? You could have your servos in there. That wouldn't technically be a complete engine, right? It's like a housing, but if it looks like one, you're good.
So yeah, if the area where it would be, like you're looking at it from any angle of it, and it looks like it would be there, that's complete. Doesn't necessarily mean that there has to be an oil pan, like things like that.
If your engine isn't somewhere where I could see if there's an oil pan or not, how can I tech it, right? So it's kind of still a gray area and still open. We would like to see air cleaner to oil pan, fan belt to bell housing,
Right.
But if we can't see it, we can't tech it. So
Yeah.
it's a tough section to write wording on.
Sure.
And
If it's a
pages, so we're trying to.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a tub chassis, especially, or pan chassis, whatever, like how much of it can you see?
Right. If you put valve covers and a blower on there, you're probably not going to get points.
Right.
It's going to, where's the engine? Those are accessory. We'll give you accessory points for them.
Yeah. Yep. That's does a foam interior exclude hardbody points for the center rectangle?
Interiors don't get hard body points.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just a silly question, but we love you.
I love foam interiors. I still have some of mine in my dumpster up here, but the interior section, there wasn't a ton of change there from anything I could see.
Right? Depth,
yeah.
There's
1 inch
1 inch.
now from where did that say, from like the bottom of the windshield?
Bottom of the windsill, if wherever you rest your arm in your truck, hinge down. And we did that because there was a lot of trucks that had, a 2.5 inch tall cab, and they were still somehow getting interior points for, full custom 3D, 2 driver. Like that's. So
we've seen them. We saw them in Vegas that were 1/4 of an inch deep.
Yeah.
And without a rule, I had to give them points. I mean, without a rule, I can't say no, this isn't. So we have to put rules to be able to quote them. We're not making things up anymore, or.
Yeah, that does make sense.
There's some hidden fences there too. Like if you look at class 3, you could make it super narrow. You can't fit 2 drivers in at the most narrow, right? So we've kind of said, you can go nuts, but if you need the points, you got to go bigger, because you can't get the inch deep and the minimum short. If you once you start mathing that out for how to get your points, you'll realize you can't actually go as small as you want sometimes. So
sure, I just have to measure my my standard driver figure here real quick. I said 5.5 inches tall, right?
That's something.
That's not
too.
Son of a.
Not.
What is
that's not a new rule. That's the same measurement that's been used in the past.
Only 5 inches.
Ah, so close.
Been telling people it was 7. No.
We got
the
the humanoid figure thing too. So if you want to run like a Transformer or a Hello Kitty, as long as it's 5.5, go nuts. We figured there's got to.
That's right. I forgot they used to say human. Yeah.
So we tried to give freedoms back and let people build what they want to build, but not if it's beneficial to the competition.
Sure. That I'll give. I like that. That's good. It's just a simple part of it anyway. Like if you want to have fun with it, yeah, sure. As long as it doesn't take away from the actual competitive part. Like it doesn't give you a huge competitive advantage to run your Pez dispenser Hello Kitty thing, but that's
God, I haven't even measured a Pez dispenser. That's a great idea.
It'd be short. So.
It'd be hard to bend too. Like I don't know.
It has feet. Like they have the feet. So like not everybody has arms, Ben. So
Oh, that brings up another Another good point. Dan, take that one. That was your ad.
Yeah, we have a really good guy local. Name is Jack, and he literally drives and builds all his trucks one armed. It is amazing. But in the old rules, we didn't have a way to really help him at comps. But with the local override, we'd set anchors or something. I mean, there's no reason for him to be climbing on rocks, right?
Right.
We're just happy he's there. So we added in the safe and fair competition statement so that the local host can make decisions on what is and is not legal, because we don't want people showing up with like a bruised toe and being like, whoa, I can't set any of my land anchors. I need 4 spotters. We kind of put it on the host a little bit, but we did want to make sure that people like Jack have a little bit of protection, right?
You should show him the hot RC.
Oh, yeah.
Gun, right?
I saw that earlier. Is that flight the castle switch? Does it only go left to right, or how's that?
Yeah, it only goes left to right.
Okay. That's hilarious.
It absolutely is hilarious. I mean, it's $17 shipped. So, does a child passenger need to be 5 inches? It does to get points, right? They all have to be that size to get. Now that was another thing in the rules. It says, did it take away the provisions for bench seats?
Let's look.
I don't think so. That was not the intention. It's still basically 1 row, 2 row, 3 row,
Yeah.
whether it's a bench or
We just
buckets.
specified by seat. So if they're in a bench format, that's fine as long as there's 2 identifiable seats in the bench.
So it has to have ass prints.
Something, yeah, like at least one cheek.
This is a family-friendly show, Josh.
That's I can get behind that area. So
Yeah.
the the bumper clarification on what counts as the bumper with the width, behind a bump or behind a body or behind the leading edge of the tire, things like that. That makes a lot more sense. It's a lot more cut and dry. I know there's plenty of exploits and versions of that were of concern before.
Yeah, in the past, it was just approach angle at 1 point. So your bumper could be a V. It could be up above the tires and wrap around the tires to get width. You really had the bumper rule is to stop approach angle for the class.
Right.
And there were many ways to get around it. So we had to put something
Sure.
somewhere.
I think one thing that we tried to do, and I know Ben doesn't like this statement, but the way I pictured in my head, we wrote in each class's limitations, hard fact. Your sliders, your boxes, your bumpers, whatever, they're there. Those are what we consider to be the impediments. And this part's the one where I know Ben was like, that's not what we did, but I look at the boxes as your gray area. We defined your limitations. Have fun in the boxes. If you break it, yeah, we'll fix it. But like you've got artistic freedom, go nuts. But class 1 is class 1 because we've guaranteed you're going to have the same approach angles, right?
Sure. Yeah, I think that seems pretty. You can extend past it in any way you want, but you're going to have a minimum, and that minimum is kind of a minimum. It actually, that size of that box can actually vary as well based on your axles and your tires and all kinds of things.
Right.
Oh yeah.
So but at least the proportions are going to be fairly similar, and axles and things like that are usually fairly close to each other. If you want to run super tiny axles, you could, but
Yeah.
might be a rough time.
Well, that was kind of our way to leave the freedom there, is to base the rectangles off the track width and the wheelbase. That way, no body is illegal. Narrow it up, different offset hubs, narrower axles, shorter wheelbase, whatever you need to do to get your body into spec. It's all possible without eliminating any body options.
Right. So yeah, I noticed that there was another one I know that was, and as far as the rule set that I read today, at least, seemed to still be there. Class 1, you can't have suspension components protrude through anything and be visible. Is that correct?
Correct.
So, and now that's not just a truck bed. That's through anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Through the hood, through
And
Put a
that's
cal induction hood on
Right.
it, or cover it with a turbo, or
Right.
make something look scale other than those stupid flat rail chassis
yeah, I do.
sticking through the hood, and just hide it. It's
Right.
a purist class that's supposed to look
And that's only
realistic.
for class 1 again to specify.
Correct.
Class
And
2
then-
requires it in the bed for points.
For drop point.
For
Yeah,
point.
if you want drop bed points, you have to cover the suspension components. Now, if you have a drop bed, say, and you put a tonneau cover over the whole thing to cover it, to cover the suspension components, do you still get drop bed points?
If you can show it to me.
But if I
If your
show it,
tonneau-
if your tonneau cover works and you can show it,
Yeah.
but you can see the suspension components at that time, you could still get the points though.
Don't make us write more rules.
I'm just asking.
Yeah, the trick is you can't glue it down and be like, trust me, we're good.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. When Josh is out there with his GoPro, the videos are gonna look scale.
It's mostly going to be in my face anyway. Don't worry.
Yeah.
So I don't shoot scale videos. That's the other guy. He's not here. So
Yeah.
I just talk to the camera a lot.
Yeah.
So let's see. Okay, I did feel personally attacked on another item, and I wanted to bring that up. And that is clearing the gates without just absolutely just yeeting your truck off the top.
Yeah.
I really like to do that because it makes it really tough for the judge to say you hit.
I want to say 70% of our time has been discussed on progress.
I get it.
Without imaginary lines,
Yeah.
there is no way for a judge to call. And you do 3D design.
Yeah.
So if you put 2 gates and you put a truck in it, and whether you take 2 steps to the right or 2 steps to the left, it looks like you're in the gate or out of the gate. It's not something we can. You can't judge it.
This is like the oldest argument in this type of sport.
Yeah.
And it's not even like in the full size world, we had it as well. It's just in the full size world, we don't jump through them all that often. Because the discussion was like our courses are never on flat ground with 2 gates, or they very rarely are, So it's like, yeah, the line goes up. But normally, you're on a 45 degree. It's like, okay, does the line go this way? Like, or does it go up? And then, well, if this one is here and then this one's here, do I get all of this area to jump through? And
It's a mystery.
Yeah.
that was always the best part, because if you had a good launch, you could just I'm safe.
At least once a month, and I'll tell you, like, pretty much every comp, there's somebody who tumbles through a gate, jumps a gate, kind of falls through a gate, it bounces weird, and we're just like, we're not ESPN, we don't have instant replay. I don't know, it's legal.
Yeah.
So now
And what's the vantage point of the camera?
Yeah, exactly.
and
That's
there's actually Bill Riddle always records his runs, and he literally has gone back at a comp and been like, I didn't clear this gate, you guys need to take 10 points off my score, or put 10 points on. Like, that he's the only one I know that like rats himself out after a comp because he records all his runs. But
I just edit that part out. Yeah,
there you go.
You didn't see that.
Come on, Bill. But this, at the last comp I was at this weekend, I always run the rules through my head while I'm going, and I actually like kind of, hey, if we have land acres and you can't move your truck, can you try that today? And everybody's like, ooh, this is hard, So like we'll kind of real time test these at comps, and the one tire touching the gate, I did that this weekend, and every single person I judged, I had no doubt whatsoever that a tire touched between the gate segment at a single point in time every single time. So this was really easy to do.
I don't honestly. I don't mind it at all. I mean, I am bummed that I'll have to change my approach, but I 100% get it. And it's one of those things, like, if we would have added that in USRCCA back when it was called that, it would have, there was so many times that was a heated debate at a national level competition. Because, there was still the gate straddle rule, if you had, and just so many arguments based around that whole thing. And yeah, it honestly, I've had private discussions with friends since these came out, arguing against it. And I was just like, I get it. And yeah, I see how, because I know how they drive as well. And I see how not being able to hop through a gate and is going to seem like a bummer to them. But as far as like the competition side, I fully get it. And
A lot of judges are. It's hard to get judges at a comp because they don't. Some people aren't confrontational, right? You have introverts and extroverts and little mixes
Oh,
of
yeah.
the two. It's stressful to judge for some people. So you don't want to have to make calls that's reverse or that's a gate. And people, I've seen people yell at people, right?
oh, sure.
They don't yell at me because I'm kind of a jerk. I'll be like, fine, that's 2 gates. But the end of the day, this is something that helps the volunteer judges, and hopefully that gets more people picking up clipboards because did a tire touch through the gate on the ground at any point? Yes, then it's a gate. You're good. If it didn't, redo it or you hit a gate, right? So we're trying to also increase judge activity.
That which is for those that have never been or never tried to help with a comp, finding volunteers that are willing to climb around on the rocks all day and like, I mean, some people aren't the physical specimen that I am and can't stand on rocks. No. I'm as hobbled as more than most, but it's brutal to be a judge and to get people to give that, to say, I'll do that. I'll sit here and have to like get people to come over, run the courses, stand there all day, tell them, oh, nope, gate, revert. It's a lot of work. So helping them in any way is an absolute bonus. And I think the only time that this may be one of those instances where it's, a con, instead of a pro, is where there's a situation that, oftentimes we put gates in very hairy situations. And when you're in a way that you're trying to go down and you tumble even clearly through a marked gate, but like, I don't think my tires were technically on the ground when I slid through that.
Practice. Yep.
So that's difficult. And that's kind of a bummer because like, hey, I was, if you make a nice approach through something and you kind of stop and your truck just does one of those and you go through, but it's like you're on track and it just happened. That sucks. But
I will say this though, in that regard, I was running C1 this weekend, and I went through a gate that was a drop down, and my truck started to endo, and I was trying to follow the new rules in my head, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to get this gate if I endo, so I goosed it, and it actually pulled my wheels down and saved me the gate. If it would have endoed, it was actually starting to teeter. So I think I maybe should have been driving that way to begin with. So there might be less gates.
There's always situations that, even if it's a con, it could work. But yeah, it's like one of the fewer situations where
we've had probably 4 to 5 meetings, multiple hours on nothing but gate progress. When we dropped it, so many Facebook messages. The first time I went to after the rules dropped, I probably spent 2 hours answering questions. That and drop dead points were the two things that people were like, I like you, but I'm gonna fight you.
Yeah, so I get it. Just install a spare tire on the roof and you won't have that problem.
Yeah. It's a living rule document now, and it can change at any time. And we've asked many people for a better suggestion without imaginary lines. And this is what we have. If somebody's got a better idea, I would love to hear it, and we will definitely discuss it and put it into play if it passes. But without imaginary lines, this is what we've got, and we'd love to change it too. We need.
I think my first national competition was 2007, and it was an argument before that. So there has not been a better suggestion up till that point to make it an easy call on judges. And that's why since then I have been hucking my truck through gates. So
I mean, we could require 14-inch tall gates, and that would solve it. They wouldn't be imaginary anymore. And then you can jump all you want.
I can jump higher than that.
Talked about specking gates. That's how this conversation went so far that Ben had like a metal truss, and he's like, how about this? I'm like, I don't think anybody's going to build 40 of those. So
it was an impossible conversation, and this is the best we could come up with.
Yeah. There's a question here about instead of using clipboards, using like a website or an app, and that sometimes is cool, but also like at the same time, I I wouldn't even think like there's
We've
about clip.
suggested that
I think
for,
I
for
would
the
fight
last since I did nationals in 2017. That's what we were trying to do.
Yeah.
So you had a live scoring that goes back to home base, and they can total scores, but it wouldn't be something that we would put in the rules for a local to have to use.
Yeah, I don't
But
like
I would
it.
love to see something like that happen.
If you had if I was trying to use my phone, I'd be screwed. Like, it'd ring 5 times during a course, and I'd have 6 emails that would popped up as I tried to say Ben hit another gate, and I would absolutely.
Yeah, no, we were going to do it as like a tablet that stays at the course, just like the clipboard that belongs to the host. But that's not something we'd put in the
and
rules.
bad
but I would love
bad
to see
cell
that.
service, everything like that. Like, it just doesn't work. I get the idea, it just doesn't work. But yeah, Brazen Scale had a great question. Where's Nationals this year?
Well, it depends.
Right now,
which
we need to know.
Brazen is it Brett or Wesley? Because I'm not answering it if it's the wrong one.
Well, I know it's the wrong one because it's Brett. So
that can't go public yet. That's not.
I know. I was just saying.
It's not committed completely yet. So
it's on the West Coast though, right?
Well,
damn it! I was trying to get you.
There's more than one possibility. We have a backup plan if one backs out, kind of deal, but we don't have a solid, and they're on both coasts. So
yeah. Okay.
Right. So no answer for that yet. I don't have a good answer.
Fine.
I know where I'd love it to be because I don't have to fly. I can drive, but
yeah.
But we can't solidify that yet.
That's fine.
Rolling trucks up at the one you're thinking of.
What's that?
I missed that.
I was just curious how good Ben is at rolling trucks up hills at the one he's thinking of.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's no longer legal.
Oh, it's not? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Where is that? What is I didn't get to that part of the rules.
You
Where
didn't see the Ben routing?
Where's
course points at the bottom.
What's that?
Course points down at the bottom of the
Course
document.
direction, winch stick on course.
The penalties are in order by value. So go to the 5-pointer.
So if you go to bottom of page 44,
yes,
the rig may only be rolled over in one direction to the passenger side or driver's side at the driver's discretion, not end over end, aka don't do what Ben did.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't go.
He didn't go end over. He just went sideways. He just kept going.
Yeah. Do we still have the 360 degrees in the wording? That was in the wording.
Oh, there's 5 bullets on how to roll a vehicle over now.
Yeah.
Just to
the
clarify.
rules are fixed.
The vehicle must remain in contact with the ground and may be rolled a maximum of 360 degrees.
There you go.
Fixed it.
And I was going to say real fast, going back to the living rules thing, on page 7, there's actually a link to a feedback form. So if anybody has any ideas, feedback, concerns, whatever, use that and we'll get our stuff.
Yeah, better wording for progress would be great.
Good luck. I have the section out, but I haven't read all these bullet points yet. Last year at Nationals, we had that situation where it came up where we were allowed to drive up and then while on all fours and then roll over. Is that fixed?
Yes. One of those bullets says that it has to be beyond 90 degrees
before you can roll it over.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we fixed it.
Good. I was just like, we're doing what? But
it says
I'm competing, so I'm doing it.
90 degrees from the crawling surface and cannot be self-righted back onto its tires. The participant can perform a rollover as described below. Yeah. And then there's 6 bullets.
Yes, perfect.
And for the record, every course that I exploited the rules on, I purposely did not complete. So I was not cheating for a win. I was cheating to fix the rules.
10 years, guys. Let's do Nats at 2023 Lucia Falls. I would love to go back to Lucia Falls. And I bet that's where Ben is hoping because it's right next to him. It would be a great 2023. Was it? It was 2012 when we were there last time, right?
Correct.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So 11 years. But that was a great event and an awesome place.
Yep.
So that would absolutely be excellent. So Disney for Nationals would be good as well. I like that. Other than it's a little rainy and floody, around those times, but either way, still a good time. The plenty of locations for nationals to happen, and I'll go roll my toy trucks over at any of them. So, let's see.
I will say
60
for your East Coast, we do have somebody pretty close to commitment on the East Coast for 2024.
Okay. So, yeah, that I mean, either way, East Coast is that I guess I have not done that many East Coast events other than Little Rock City or Cherokee Rock Village, whatever you want to call it. Other than that, like we did Copper Hill, Tennessee for and Coe Whitewater Center back then, but those were all kind of southeast. Other than that, I haven't really done much East Coast.
Right. I believe Ocoee was 2018 or 19. We did that for scale.
Oh, that's right. I did not go that year.
Yeah. You didn't miss much.
Yeah, I did it. I was out there a couple of years, 2 or 3 years for ECC for robot crawling back in the day.
Did they turn the water on you?
Nope. But I've been at Disney when they turned the water on us. So, I've ran into that situation more than once. So I guess was there any things you guys would have liked to have closed a loop on, but really just wasn't functional, wasn't feasible?
Transfer case would be another. We would like suggestion on that. We couldn't come up with something that contained that kept the current transfer cases that are legal, but kept out the ones that shouldn't be.
Yeah.
It was a back and forth discussion over and over, and we never found a solid wording other than leave it as last year and start a ban list. But that doesn't give the people designing them the parameters to build off of, and we don't want to stop the creativity in the hobby. So we don't have a good way to divide that. So that would be another one for the suggestions that there's 6 of us. I know I saw one of the questions earlier. Somebody asked about who the panel was. Me and Dan, Devlin, Darren out of Canada. I'm not going to attempt his last name either. Scott Manis. So there's 6 of us, and we're writing up a document for the process to become a board member. This year's the first year we used an alpha team of people that we suggested that are very deep into the hobby to pre-read the rules and give us feedback. And so we're going to pull when there's an opening in the committee. We're going to pull from the most helpful people in the alpha. What's that?
9 in alpha right now.
Oh, I thought you said there's none that were helpful. You said there's
too.
9 in alpha. It's like there's none that are helpful.
Oh, the alpha
So we're working on a way to get people into alpha as well, and that's part of that document on page 7. Good suggestions, not like you guys suck or I don't like this rule, but a better alternative that works. People who are suggesting things that are actually helpful will be the ones that are going to be put into alpha.
Sure, absolutely. Scott O'Blandon, thank you, sir. How many members are on the committee? They just answered that, actually, luckily. And how they're rotated in and out. Good timing, Ben. and VFD Twin is allowed in class 3 now. Yes, it was technically probably allowed in class 2 until last year. Well, even in class 1. So
yeah, it's allowed in any class. You just can't shift your overdrive
you just
or your dig
mechanically
unless you're in class 3.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
We added that in because there were some people running C3s and C2 and smaller tires, and you could actually see they were running like crappy servos so that their tires would move on the rear. We're like, yeah, that's coming to an end.
Yeah, mechanical lockout makes sense. That's
so a suggestion on that: when you're setting up a class 3, make your tie rod or your drag link the right length to screw it into the center of the horn. So you can go from class 2 to class 3 just by pulling a screw and putting it in the center of the horn. You're mechanically locked out. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I think Ben's big thing too, I'm surprised he didn't bring up that we didn't get to close the loop on, is we just ran out of time. We wanted to redo the points. They're written for a different generation of technology. Like Ford motor mounts, there's not I'm not a believer in there's more
Yeah.
parts that can break. I think that's a cop out. I would run forward motor mount anyway because it puts my motor so low and so
Right.
far forward that
Right.
I would not run it, you know. But
So
we
the,
award points for that. So
yeah, the points are designed to be a handicap to equal things out.
Right.
And with evolution, I mean, some guy moved motor and like it's no longer a disadvantage to have the old GCMs with your motor up under the hood.
Yes.
So we wanted to revamp the points and remove the ones that don't benefit or don't handicap you.
Right.
And then revamp, maybe that'll adjust the max point values. We've discussed things to add into the points. Like I'd like to see IFS get points, but we didn't get to the point. Yeah. We didn't get to the point section and we can't do a half job on it. We need to do the whole thing. So that'll be one of the next changes probably for next year, but it's going to take a lot of work and we will adjust the max values to make sure that you can still point out a truck, but you're going to have handicaps to do so.
Yeah.
And I argue a little bit. I would say that I want it to be very hard to point out a truck, but doable. But if you point it out, you're driving a much harder to drive vehicle. I think that there's a balance between performance and max points. And if you run max points, you better drive good. And if you don't run max points, you better run perfect, you know?
Right.
Yeah. And if you're the guy that complains and says, I can't max my truck out anymore, guess what? We're all running the same rules. The guy competing against you can't max his truck out either.
Right.
So it's going to be a decision whether you want performance or free points.
Sure. That would make sense. You know, it's like right now, yeah, everybody, you just have to have a maxed out truck if you want to
100%.
rank your truck somewhere reasonable. Yeah, that's not hard right now at all. Totally agree. Right. Especially with how, you know, again, the change in technology, you know, custom hard body points now with a 3D printed body, like you can do that easily if you want. You can, you know, there's all kinds of things that are just the access to everything now, like compared to when SORRCA kind of started, like we were still had to make a lot of things back then to make stuff happen.
Driveline digs.
Oh, well, we weren't SORRCA comping then yet. We had decent digs already by that point, but that didn't matter because they were already illegal. But
like fabricated shock mounts, why did that ever get points? You know, like
So in the beginning of scale, trying to get people to build scale, a lot of the points were rewarded for
the effort. Yeah.
And it's not that the hobby's quadrupled in size. I mean, it's huge compared to what it was, and nobody's putting that effort in. They're just basically getting free points for living inside of the gray area.
Well, or you can buy any of the things. You can just drop in points super easy. Just this takes nothing now. But yeah, no, I think a lot of that stuff is just super easy. And I think a revamp to the points, that would be a really interesting thing to see, and I think would make a lot of sense. And again, I know I saw a couple of comments here, even, like the idea, this live stream in particular would not be like a good thing for a guy to think about, like, maybe I want to think about comping. And it's just 3 hours of like getting into like it's not that bad. We're the three of us, at least, all live in this world a lot. So I'm like, oh, I really like the word you used here, subsection 7 of, I'm a big fan. It's an over nerding out on very simple, very small details of something that is not that crazy. So you could still grab a lot of pretty basic trucks and go compete. Like, don't let that turn you away.
Last weekend we were at the counter and a dad and a kid came in and he was looking in the back and he's like, "Oh, are you having a comp today?" And we're like, "Yeah." And Chris, who said hi earlier, he was at the counter, and the guy's like, "Well, I was gonna let the little guy run," and me and Chris were like, "Sign up for the comp. Your trucks aren't legal, but who cares? The judges will help you. You can still go run. You can have some fun." And at some point throughout the day, I was running, but I heard somebody over there like, "No, so when you do this, you got it." Like they were getting coached, and I think they had a good time. So like that's the big thing with the comps. Just show up. Like this is the only sport I know of where people will literally take a motor out of your truck and give it to you so you can run. Right? Like
for sure.
It's so different.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's
And at a local level, we've never turned anybody away. You show up with a kid and an MOA, put it in class 3, your score's not going to count. It's not a legal truck. We're not going to put you in our score, but you're gonna compete today and you're gonna have a good time.
Yeah, and you'll
So
learn something and
SORRCA's-
you'll understand and you'll you'll help move forward. Is the VFD twin would be legal in all classes. In C1 and C2, you just have to put the set screw in and it's mechanically locked out. So
Yep.
Correct.
it would absolutely be legal in all classes. The other I did see the clarification on sliders was now, because before it was common for someone to take a piece of aluminum back, adhesive back tape and put it on the side of their body, and that was a metal slider point.
Yeah.
So the clarification there.
Now they're chassis mounted. So if something's going to stick out there, it's going to be strong or it's going to get wadded up and be in your way.
Yeah, because it has to be. There's Brazen again with the guilty. Exactly. That's his crazy light brass roof rack that was a sheet of paper. But the sliders, and it also said that it has to be able to support the truck. It can't deform or bend out of the way. It said something like that. So it has to be a slider.
Right, so
you're gonna get slider points. It has to be a slider.
Yeah.
I mean, like it can flex a little bit, but if it's foam or paper, it's just going to crumple. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. Don't think we don't have to rebuild our trucks too.
Yeah,
There's been
exactly.
right there.
The rules were put in, and we have to follow them as well. And we didn't write them to make our trucks legal and everyone else's not. We've got work to do too.
Right. Sure. I think that's going through so many of these things. There's little that I think the center, the cab height clarification, things like that, saying that, things have to be a certain height at least, no matter what, whether or not you want points for a roll bar or an interior cage, it still has to be so high, even if it said you didn't have to have a windshield or a roof.
Yeah.
T1 had no height before. That's why people were running 1-inch tall bodies with like gangster lean bodies.
Right. And that's, for people like that, you go to a comp and you've got a realistic looking vehicle, even if it's very competitive, but it's got a roll cage with where a windshield would be, even if it doesn't have a windshield. And then you have a truck that literally, like, it's a C1, the most supposed to be street, ish type class, and the whole body is just, like, I get it. That is super appealing to me too. I'm like, damn it, I really should have just done that.
Yeah. Well, same thing with bumpers. They were based off the chassis, but we don't have a chassis width. So your rear bumper could be 3/4 of an inch wide. Like, there were so many rules exploited because we didn't have defined areas. We based it off of another part of the vehicle, and that part of the vehicle didn't have a parameter at all.
That was the holiday buggy problem. The windshield defines your bumper, so you had no bumper basically in C1.
Yeah. Yep. That's wheel wells in C1. Can they be opened now? Yeah. There is no more comp cutting or major body modification rule. That was specifically noted to be removed.
Correct.
So you can do, as long as it meets the rest of the rules, you can open up that stuff now. That is, that flexibility there makes things even a little bit nicer with the bumper clarification. There is no more gray area. It's going to be pretty well defined. I liked seeing that as well. The difference between cutting off this little tab that hung down in the front of your wheel opening on a 4Runner body versus just cutting it straight was the difference between legal and not. It's just like,
if you want to take your whole fender well off and move it, do it. Major body mod is gone.
Okay, so that's an interesting point, because you still have to have the wheels centered within a 1/2 inch front and rear of the wheel wells, but you can move those.
100%.
Yep.
And shape them.
Sure. Okay.
Yep.
That's
so we tried to make it more freedom, and I mean, we know some people are just going to hack it up, and if that's what you want your truck to look like, more power to you.
Right.
But it's going to be a level, equal competition.
If you've ever driven through West Virginia, you know them vehicles ain't always pretty, but they function. So
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in the Midwest. We had a lot of, what do you call it, trars, and
oh,
there's a
I'm from Illinois, so yeah, doors didn't match, beds were
yeah. It was like, what is that, a Z28 on a Dodge Dakota chassis? Like, yep. They were both free in the backyard. But fish built, thank you, sir. Would there be a
Our
box?
C0 teaser, that's
What's
going to
that?
be where we kind of fix some of this for people. C0 is where we're going to fix the scale stuff for people and make it more.
Are you? I didn't see the C0 discussion. That's interesting.
Oh, so that's just a spoiler. We're going to
Okay.
do it. There was a lot of anger over everything in these rules. Somebody lost a fight every single decision in this document. So out of
sure.
these 50 pages, there's 50 angry conversations.
Yeah, minimum.
And the tire coverage was a huge one. Like there was a lot of legitimate anger over the tire coverage going away.
Yep.
So some of us volunteered to do C0, and I think the interesting thing with C0 is you have to avoid the nuclear arms race that exists in C1, 2, and 3, right? People are naturally competitive. So C0 is going to have to conceptually, in my opinion, and I'm just a vote, right? So I'm not speaking for SORRCA, I'm just speaking for Dan right now. When I go in to do C0 with the guys, I'm going to be arguing for a reinvention of how C0 courses are built, function, and work. And then they're designed around keeping scale pretty trucks pretty, but maybe it's a time-based competition instead of hitting gates, right? We got to find some way to
Right.
make it scale and fun without destroying beautiful trucks.
I remember we were at Rocas Roja in Denver. It was year before last, I guess, when I was there. And or was it last? I don't remember. Doesn't matter. There was a guy who had like if you counted all the scale points, you didn't max. There was no max in any category, which doesn't exist now anymore. He had this Forerunner that was like 80 some points. Had like full motor and leaf springs, and I mean all the tires. I think there was a spare. It was full of stuff, and it was a pretty good looking truck. I mean, it did not function very well, and he was very careful trying to get through the courses. But it was fun to watch at times. Unless, I mean, I don't know. Unless it was absolutely something that was being judged and tabulated with the other scores for nationals, it's probably not my area, but yeah. Getting back to a question from before, would there ever be a box stock RTR class for kids or beginners? Thank you, Fish Built.
I would love to see one, but there are so many people making trucks now. A factory VS 410 versus a factory Red Cat, or we would have to pick one truck.
Yeah,
that is the spec.
Can you imagine if we picked one truck? We already get accused of being like the man and like being all I get for a payment out of this is arguing with Ben's beautiful face.
Yeah.
Like imagine if we picked a truck, like, hey, we're gonna run the 10-2. Oh my God. So
it would be a very
I would love to see it though. It would be a driver's class, and that would be about the best competition you can get, is everybody driving the exact same truck. But nobody wants to build the exact same truck. But that would be the absolute competition. It would be a lot of fun.
It would be. And it if you could get us all to do it, and you tie all of our hands and you don't let any of us try and hide, just like, oh, they're not going to notice this one little thing. You got sneak something in here or there. Like,
I thought about it quite a bit. The only way I could figure out how to make it work was, maybe a shameless plug, but Key City Hobbies is indoors, and he has a hobby shop in front. Like, the only way I could see this working is if like he somehow was willing to pay for like the 7 trucks, and you all ran his trucks, and if one broke, it's not on you. The truck swaps in, right? Like it would have to be host provided, and that's expensive. So
it doesn't have to be. There's a club pretty local to me, OGRC. They bought the new Samurais, the Enduros, and everybody bought the same truck, and they're competing with them at that level.
Do they weigh them though before every comp to make sure you didn't put like lead weights in the axles? And people are shady like that.
Right.
No, they're OGs, so they're not shady. But there's also Tim.
You're the shadiest builder I've ever met in my life.
Tim did for a while. He called it the $5 truck, and everybody paid $5 and drove the same truck.
I like
And his local competition ran the same truck through all the drivers, and everybody pitched in $5. And then I think they all decided on what the upgrades for the truck were going to be with the money.
That's kind of fun.
There's a lot of things you can do at a local
Sure.
level that it's
I like that idea a lot.
it's going to be a lot of fun, but it's not something that we could put into rules without
Right.
pissing off one vendor or the other, or having equal competition if we just say any box stock truck.
You know what would be fun? And the same is it's like the lemons rules. Like, hey, it's a $500 buyout class. So like you can bring anything you want, but at any point they can buy that truck from you for $500. So like
Yep. That
Like,
that would be a great one.
Those were fun. We did do in 2010. Losi sponsored an event in Omaha at Hobbytown Hobbyplex there, and Alex Froboy at the time, he was the one who helped get that put on, and it was the Losi MRC Mini Pro Nationals, and we all were there the day before. And there was a regular 2.2 comp as well. But then on that day, they provided us all with the Losi MRC comp roller. They came no electronics. And you got to put whatever electronics in it you want. But you had to run the rest of the truck spec. And that was fun. You got the night.
If it was a pro, those things pretty much worked out of the box.
They did. They were fun. But again, those are like little things that it was just like a fun aspect. It's hard to implement on a national level, but for a one thing, like that stuff is fun.
That is real cool.
It's and the nice thing was it was already built. You just had to paint the body and install your electronics, and it was great. It was, again, not a feasible large scale rollout, but like for one event, one time, you were signed up ahead of time. The whole deal. It was a blast. I won that event. Shameless plug. That's why I remember the date so well.
There's some events where they're like, hey, you got to run this truck, but you can change wheels and tires. And now I look at those events and I'm ruined because of Devlin and Ben. Now there's another reason we have that diameter in there for the B blocks. I never thought about this, but I literally could just put a pizza cutter on there and I'd have no side roll, no nothing. I didn't realize how versatile a B block was until I had to write a rule on it. So
that was the thing that we used to do back in the day too. You might remember it, Ben, but do you remember when we used to put a large diameter disc in the middle of our tires?
Yeah. Yep.
So I used to.
Some of us still do to hold the foam in place. But.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. I give you that. Like we used to do. I used to cut a 4.5-inch diameter disc out of like a polycarbonate, and I would glue it to the inside of my bead ring, and then I'd run my foams on either side, so it was super well supported. And it just, I don't do it anymore, but
yeah,
foams have come a long way since then too.
Right.
We did not have closed cell inners. We were only running 2-stage open cell foams. But since I run all the Crawler Innovations one now, and I don't find the use as much. But yeah, otherwise I still would. I guarantee it.
Yeah. I've gone foam crazy. I've started like stuff. My C2 has the 475 CIs and then also the 525 deuce rings in there. I have like 2 sets of foam shoved into my class 2 tires.
Yep. Foams foam is the place to
They're
be.
life changing.
Yeah.
I'm never going to go back to soft foams. I want them as hard as possible.
For next year, we're actually going to write rules about foams.
Damn it, man.
Open your tires up. I demand it.
Who's next from the alpha? I'm out.
Yeah. The SpongeBob meme. Just like, all right. Yeah, the old school days of tires filled with airsoft BBs. I think I still have a tub of airsoft pellets around here somewhere from that. And that was like, I remember I built a 2.2 Claude back in the day with cut and shut Badlands and Moab sidewalls or something like that. And one of my shitty tire glues came undone and there was just airsoft pellets just dumping all over the course. It's just microplastics everywhere. But
yeah.
Unfortunate.
With your nickel metal stick pack, right?
I had hump packs on each side of the axle.
That was later.
Either like, again, for people who are watching, don't let rules like turn you away too much. If you have any desire to like scratch a competitive edge, it's so much fun. It really is. Like it also, it helps push you on things. Like it helps if you enjoy building, but like sometimes you're just like, you don't know what you want to do. Like having to take into account two aspects, both the style that you think you want and also still being competitive or not completely ruining your, your performance. It's a great little twist to add to builds. So
I have a group that I've been running, Homestead RC, and I put it on hold while we were doing the rules. But like, if you reach out to me, the whole point of what we do is help people get into SORRCA. So just shoot me a message and I'll find somebody to sit down and just explain things to you if it's not me. Like I think that because I've only been doing this for about a couple of years, right? And I couldn't believe the amount of gotchas go into a comp like no, I have the screenshot from 1992 where my third cousin, I'm like, what? That's not written. And it was so frustrating that like I went and kind of started that with a buddy, Mike. And so if anybody wants to get into this and wants clarification, there's no questions asked, no charge, no nothing. Just shoot me a message. I'll get somebody to sit with you if it's not me, and we will take all the time you need to explain it.
Yeah, it's really just not that. Once you just kind of like look at the big picture stuff, none of it's not that hard. Like
well, and with our new format, the questions, if they're repeat questions and we keep getting the same ones, it's living rules. We're just going to put it in the rules.
Yeah, just a clarification.
It means
I saw some of those
means
like
that we didn't explain it good enough.
This means this. Like I think I maybe only saw that once in here, but
Our goal is actually to be able to, in the question answers, not write anything. Just take a screenshot of the rules and reply and shut the thread down.
Yeah.
There's also one other thing that's kind of cool. I don't know if you've met the guys from Deaf Customs, but I've learned a lot from them. They're literally deaf. And there's different types of deafness, right? And I sat with them over Apple, and iOS has a subtitle built in, so you can actually have a full conversation. And we went through the whole rules, and we're gonna have to do that with the new set now so that they have it. But this is the first time that I know of in SORRCA, but we're actually going to have a shout out to them in the rules. So if you're deaf and have a hard time kind of gathering what's in here, they volunteered to kind of do a Skype call, do whatever, and walk you through it. So now we have an able-minded statement, and then we also have some help from Deaf Customs to help our deaf competitors. So I think we're heading in a direction.
Yeah, I've actually ran with them a couple times. Once at K&K in 2019.
Vegas.
And then, were they at Vegas too?
Vegas. Yep. That's where I met them.
Okay, because I met them also it was at Nationals last year. So
maybe it was
great drivers. I love those guys.
So, yep. No, good times for sure. Let's see. What else do we have in here that would be good to hit? I think I know we got about 15 minutes left. I'm just trying to see if there's any other. I read through here well, and I should have taken some notes of things to talk about at the time, but the
What was your least favorite part that jumped out at you?
The progress stuff was I wasn't unfavorable to it. I get it. I like the distinction between class 2 and class 3, like making class 3. I wish that there was a way to be like, they need to be different trucks. But at the same time, like I get, like I ran the same truck in class 2 and 3 last year. It's just like I didn't have time to build a class 3. Traveling with 3 trucks is so much harder than traveling with 2. So I get it. I wish that, or I don't say I wish that they had to be different trucks. I wish that it was, and I haven't fully, like, I've read everything, I've understood the rules as well, but I haven't like visualized everything. But it'll be interesting to see if the changes to the wording and sizing of class 3 makes it so much more competitive now to build something to the rules versus taking a class 2 truck and moving it to class 3. That's what I guess I'll be very interested in.
Yeah.
So
a lot of guys hated the class 2s and the class 3s. They want to run the big tire trucks. But like
I
you say,
do
with
like that.
with the added clearance on the rocker panels, approach angles, I mean, there's a lot of added clearance in the new C3 rules, so we might get dedicated C3 builds.
Right, and that would be something I think would be super cool to see. If it is something that is truly going to see that separation of like, hey, it is a lot more competitive to do this now compared to what it used to be like this, then I'm going to be pumped to see that and see, mainly because I do love the class 3 style that it could be. I love tube buggies and wild, steering angles and still having people find a way to make it look scale. It's everything that Matt would hate. And that is my absolute favorite.
So here's one that Matt will hate while we're talking about C3 and opening up, loosening the rules, letting you do what you want. Twin vertical plate has never been defined. We cannot define it. They're legal now. You don't like that you have to cover your chassis poking through the bed or the hood, but you're not thinking about the twin vertical plates that are going to be poking through there. So you can run whatever you want hidden under your truck now. It's no longer, you can run a fifth dimension chassis if you want, but it will be hidden because they are scale trucks.
Yeah.
So
that side of it, it's like, how is this not a twin vertical plate? It's just longer. Like all of a sudden, like that's not twin vertical. Then it was one of those things that made it kind of silly to try and say one is versus what isn't. So I get that clarification exists, or doesn't exist, I should say. Now, I guess there used to be a maximum rise that was a thing in like class 1. Now that I did not see that again. That is gone.
It is not there, and the reason it never really made sense, because with your fenders and your tires required to be there, you don't have the articulation of a high-rise chassis anyway. Like there's no benefit to have it hidden in there. So it's hidden. We don't care what you do. Your body is going to limit your approach angle, your ground clearance. Your body's going to limit all of that. So there's no need for it anymore. We don't care if they're carbon fiber. They're hidden. The truck looks scale from the outside, and what you do underneath is your business.
Right. That again, I guess also helps at the tech table. There's no measuring of a chassis rise and trying to figure out how to do that. So
I think there's sorry, go ahead.
I guess the additional weight thing still exists basically as is. You can have brass knuckles. You just can't have knuckles that you then bolt brass to.
Right.
That same thing. So, and that I guess is probably mainly to try and was there any? I have to go back and look. Is wheel construction still?
No, that's gone.
Yeah.
I don't like that. There you go. That's what I don't like.
There you go. Well, there's a feedback form on page 7.
Yeah.
And
that's back to the same thing. If you want your truck to look like what I consider to look like ass, that's your truck. It's not going to benefit you in the competition, and we're writing rules for a competition.
Right.
So
some
people like it, some people hate it, but it's a competition rule set, and if that's what you want your truck to look like, fit the parameters.
Yep. So
and that also pushes class 0, because I'm pissed off personally that we got rid of scale in a to some extent, and class 0 should put scale back in scale, because like Dan said, I'm one vote, and I guarantee you everything you don't like about the rules, at least half of us didn't like it, and we had to argue until we got a majority. So we don't like them as much as you don't like them, but it's a process we have to go with for the hobby, not for our personal opinions of it. So.
And when was the last time SORRCA as a group did an alpha and then a public beta rollout, took feedback and actually modified rules, and still got them out before the deadline?
Yeah. Well, I guess it's a definition of when the deadline was, right?
Yeah, Jan 1 is when they go in, right? So, yeah.
And another good point, since we started into this, since we really started moving on it, we've argued a lot, and nobody has quit the committee in the process of writing this set of rules, which is a benchmark
Which is a new record.
for SORRCA.
Well, they kind of did. They quit like before we really got into it. So
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Um,
That makes sense.
we have an inactivity rule. So there's some people that through inactivity were washed out, but that's just, you have to have that. If you're not participating after 30 days, it is what it is. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I mean, life happens to some people, and at that time, it's like, yeah, we need to keep moving though. So
Yeah.
it is what it is. That reasonable for sure.
I was going to rewind us to the TVPs for a second. The other thing with allowing those is Ben said in the same breath, we don't know what they are, but you can run them, because we all have an idea of what they are. We just can't describe them. And I think that when we redo the points and it becomes harder to get points, the things like TVPs being allowed is going to let you really build some cool like mechanical advantages, even if you're giving up some scale points or gain. We're trying to make it where there's more tuning and build options, but scale comes at a cost. And my pet peeve is define scale. I couldn't define TVP, but what the hell does scale mean? Every comp I go to, they're like, hey, this is scale. I found a picture in a book in a library from 1912. What?
Right. TVP for people who are actually twin vertical plate, and that was previously considered to be like like on these type of trucks. This used to be considered like a TVP. Now this is technically 4 vertical plates, but you said these flat plates, and this is technically the one up there would be like a TVP. This is like a bodiless, but let's not get into the details. Anyway, it's basically just plates that have all of your suspension mounting holes and your shock mounting holes, which sounds a lot just like flat rail chassis, which is why I always said that they were so dumb, even though I have so many now.
Yeah.
But that's...
I blame that on the L Trail chassis.
Right?
Was what?
X Trail was first, thank you. L Trail was second.
Was it?
Yeah. MOA is allowed now? No, MOA is disallowed specifically at the top of the rules.
Correct.
Even though it would technically be, you could make a scale representation of actual trucks at this point, it still makes sense to just say no. So
at what point are you just becoming sporties?
Yeah, exactly. So at that, it's just protecting the majority. Yes, there is a minority of full-size versions that would protect, so I don't want to get too...
Yeah. I think too, one of the things I don't know I'd be curious at your thought on this, because I haven't brought this up to the committee yet. So if I could just raw dog it here and just say, hey, what are your thoughts? I thought it'd be kind of cool in the rules that we're going to have a glossary. That's one of the things that we wanted to get to that we didn't get time right. I also thought it'd be kind of cool to have like an index of local clubs. So, if we had people submit like to the feedback form what your local club is, we could put a link. Like when I started, I Googled on Facebook scale clubs, right? And I found VA Scaler, and I'm still running there. I found Maryland Scaler. I found all those people that are there, right? And I was like, holy crap, I didn't know these were here, and there's a ton of them. And I think if we had in the rules like just a place where you could see all that, I don't know, is that useless? Is it useful? Like, what do you think?
No, I mean, we used to back in the day have like RC Crawler. And RC Crawler, there was a region section, there was Midwest, East Coast, West Coast, blah, blah, and you could just go and then you go to your state, and then there was a area that was like, oh, and you could at least narrow it down quickly enough, and you could find some active threads and be like, here's where I belong. And that was helpful. And Facebook it's ruined a lot, but that has been a definite downside. Now, like anything.
So on top of that, there is right now a listing. It's not full, but Melissa Bivings has a group that gets a hold of where the events are. It's not club based where the clubs are, but where every event is happening. Anybody can report to that club or that group. And,
I think the biggest problem with any of it is the availability we all have to as much tech as we have now. Like, what's a club? Anybody can have a club. There's just the kid who wants to start a Facebook group like, hey, I got a club. It's me and my dad. Yeah. And that's great and all. Yeah. But how many of these do we really have to add?
Right.
And
so it's an event page. So any event going on.
Oh, I know. I'm talking about like if you wanted to put it in the rules. Because if you're going to put anything, I'm going to grab a few friends and we're going to make some really interesting club names. And I'm going to have you add them.
Okay. Yeah.
We're going to have our first event. And then you're going to have to put in there some super offensive club naming. No.
That's kind of where like I think it could be fun, but like while this is the nicest hobby, boy, the things that are set at comps are probably
Oh,
best left at the comps. So
Yeah.
well, I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm. we all have our. Like, this isn't being recorded right now, right? No, we're okay. We're good. So.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or I've heard you know what, guys? I really hate you. I am recording, and now I got to spend all this time editing out the audio. Because
Oh yeah, that's that. A lot of times, I'm just like, really? We're gonna have to duck the audio in that particular section of this video. But I think we're about at the end here. Thanks both of you guys. I'm sure we could all ask a million questions that would come in consistently through here on individual legalities of a particular build that is being described over text. But I think that's there's going to be a time and a place for that. Either way, thanks for both of you guys for jumping on, having some discussion. It was fun. I love rules. And looking forward to building trucks for scale nats for sure. I got to dive in and really start looking at where the new abilities are and, some of this stuff and going from there. Either way, building trucks is the fun part though. So
we're seeing cool stuff already. Like there's some bodies that we're like, man, I might have to pay that guy to make that. That's really cool. So
yep. I'm looking forward to building a new body again this year as well. So I think it'll be a good time. So thanks again, guys. Appreciate it. And I'm sure there'll be more. Next clarification set.
Yeah. Thanks for your time, Josh.
Yeah, no problem. We'll see you guys.
Good meeting you. Later.
All right. While I've broken my... Let's see if that worked. Who knows? Again, I'm sure that made a lot of you go cross-eyed or probably already turn off the stream, so this doesn't matter anyway, in which case I could give you all the secrets anyway. But scale crawling is a lot of fun. If you like to compete in anything, this is a great area to do it. Is the Mon 14 legal? Oh, that's a great question. Like, where does the center section, where's the rear triangle, where's the rear rectangle? I mean, Moose Jaw's working on the black one. So either way, this is not my scale nationals. Ooh, maybe my class 3. Ooh. Eek. Good stuff. Have to be pretty narrow axles. That's what I'm saying, class 3. I think I could get away with it. It could really just look like it's coming at you. But good times. Thanks to those guys both for joining in. And there's Matt and I are going to have our scale nats builds again this year. So that's going to be awesome. Looking forward to it already. But we have more builds coming. And hopefully let's see, what is next week? Next week is yeah, we'll probably tell you guys a little bit about the next videos from us. Maybe next week. It should be fun. It's kind of back there. But Matt and I have another special coming out, which would be a great time. Class D. Winner. All right, guys. Thanks again, everyone watching. I'm sorry that I didn't have the viewer activity up, and I can't thank everybody who donated, but much appreciated to all of you again. So with that, I'll do the whole blooper reel again, like I did on Scale News this week at the end of the video, because I could not get Scale News out this week. Couldn't speak. Thanks for watching. We'll, as Matt would say, love you. Bye.